Good morning. Good morning. Hope everyone is doing well. Was just getting the tweet sent out so we can get things started here, but we'll get our panel set up. Very happy to have everyone with us today and excited to be talking about our series, Adorned. And so, also for those that are just coming into the room, I'll go ahead and ask you to please tweet out. The room as well so we can work on bringing some eyes in, bringing some speakers in. And I see requests happening, so working on going ahead and bringing people up here. So we will go ahead and good morning. Happy to have everyone with us. Very, very excited for our space today. And it looks like I have sent the Bridge Gallery an invite to come up to the speaker panel as well. So if you would like to, please do. But very excited to have our group here. And so just to give everybody a little bit of an intro, this is Emma, aka Nifty Meta Girl, and coming to you from MetaJungle Studios this morning. Very, very excited to be sharing sharing about this new series coming out from Bridge Gallery for Àsìkò, and it's an absolutely beautiful collection. We have some friends with us from the Bridge Gallery, and we also have Alex with us from the Bridge Gallery. So very happy to delve into this collection. But I want to say hello to Mike as well, our co-host today. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good morning, everybody. How are you doing, Emma, today?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to be sharing about this particular series and to be getting the chance to highlight it. So, and happy to have you with me today.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited about what Bridge Gallery is doing to merge African artists with the new technology in the art space, and I'm loving seeing these portraits from Seiko. Their aesthetic is really beautiful, emotional work. So I'm excited to get into that.
I completely agree. And as we are having friends join us here in the space, I was going to also see if we could introduce the Bridge Gallery and maybe learn a little bit about their mission with bridging African artists with the NFT space and bringing some attention. So I wanted to say hello and good morning, both to I think we have Vinay behind the Bridge Gallery account, and then we have Alex
Yes,
as well.
yes. Hi,
Hi,
Emma. Hi, Emma. Nice
how
to
are you
hear from you.
today?
I'm good, thanks.
Nice
Really
to hear
happy
from you as well.
to have the opportunity to present the series and what we are doing. And thanks for the opportunity. It's amazing.
Oh, very happy to do so. And it was great to meet the Bridge Gallery team face to face at Paris Photo recently. That was really, really exciting. So it was great to get to connect. It was a great event. So, yeah, happy to have you guys with us this morning. And I did want to highlight the Bridge Gallery website is really, really well done. Very clean, very precise, and a lot of great information. So, with reviewing and preparing, there's a lot of information here about wanting to help onboard, curate, spotlight artists from Africa. And could you please tell us just a little bit about that mission and the process while we're waiting for more friends to come in?
Yes, of course. So, as you were saying, yeah, the Bridge Gallery is born from the observation and the realization that a lot of African renowned photographers, as well as emerging talents in the photography space, were somehow lacking representation in the NFT industry and in the Web3 space. And as for us, we have always been passionate about African photography, especially Alex, who actually he is the guy who introduced me to African photography. It was at the time more vintage, traditional black and white photography from Africa, especially from artists like Malik Sidibe or Seydou Keita. I don't know if you heard about them. That he personally collected these artists, and so as I was saying, yeah, there are so many amazing African photographers out there who kind of weren't noticed in the NFT. Uh, and a lot of them are actually really famous on Instagram, but on other platforms such as Twitter and on the Web3 space, they are kind of lacking opportunities to show and present their art to the rest of the world. And yeah, that what we are doing is trying to open new doors for artists by creating NFTs with their art, and giving them new opportunities, new ways to connect with fans, connect with collectors, being collected from other parts of the world. And we also want to show to the people in the NFT space the diversity of messages that you can find in African photography, and the diversity of styles, of aesthetics, and also to present how growing and vibrant the artistic scene in Africa and in the whole African diaspora.
Yes, if I can add to this, I think African photography, is a sort of young movement, artistic movement. It started in the '60s, but it truly arrived in the art markets, maybe in more developed art markets, around the '90s. With André Magnan in France, for example, and but nowadays it's going more and more, and there's so many amazing artists, contemporary photographers, that it was important for us to show this diversity, which actually displays the diversity of the continent. You have an amazing diversity of identities, of narratives, of stories, like the one of Àsìkò, and so we wanted to be a sort of display this amazing diversity and all these stories through NFTs, which are an amazing medium to break barriers and to reach collectors from around the world very efficiently. So this is what Web3 is allowing us to do, and it's our mission, and we are looking forward to continue on this, and keeping bringing more and more emerging and well-established artists from the traditional space.
That's awesome. I have noticed a lot lately, just a lot of talent that's coming out of Africa, and just a lot of artists there pushing boundaries. And I'm seeing some artists that like just strictly use like iPhones or phone photography and just creating just beautiful portrait work. And just yeah, just I hear you when you say like how it's really evolving in this region for art, and I love what you guys are doing with like bridging that in.
Thanks a lot.
I completely agree. And it's awesome to have this voice and this presence to help highlight. And I think that can also help elevate and push some of the attention and kind of confine that. Go ahead and funnel that attention to those that are moving up in the space and really be able to help them reach more people. So, absolutely love that support being shown. So, in this particular collection is just amazing. But I do want to say good morning to Àsìkò, and I think it's good afternoon where you are. But how are you today?
Hello, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you. It's just great listening to everybody just talk about where they've come from and what's inspired them. I think that's one of the great things of life, to be inspired. So thankful for this opportunity, and thank you.
Well, I love that, and I think that really resonates too with your beautiful photography. To have that influence and that inspiration shine through, and that's something that definitely strikes me, even initially looking at your work. And I was wondering, it would be great to kind of learn more about you as an artist, as a photographer, and then also kind of delve into this particular series and collection. And I understand that you are a self-taught photographer, Nigerian born and raised. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. I'm self-taught. I did at one time have a very, very different career path, working as a scientist for some years back, but I always had a passion and a love for art and for photography. And as time went on, I kind of the word I guess is pivoted more into my passion and the things that I wanted to do and create work about the stories that I wanted to create. So I initially started off as a photographer. When I pivoted from my previous career as a scientist, but I think the world of art has opened up a lot more to me. So, I'm working in different mediums, and my work in a way is kind of mixed medium. So there's photography, but then there's also, ideas and inception of these ideas. And photography is a way for me to talk about these ideas. I've also dabbled in film, in creating a short film. So I think for me, I enjoy the creative process, and I'm finding different ways of expressing who I am, my African culture, the space of women within my culture, and different mediums of expression. And for me, it was really important for this series called the Adorned series to use photography to mention, to highlight the beauty of the African continent and the beauty of, the women who are my subjects through this series. This work actually started as a kid. Living in Nigeria, I was inspired by, you know, um, the ceremonies and the cultural heritage. You can see the vibrancy and the beauty of the cultural heritage when you live in Nigeria. It's quite bustling and it's vibrant. And, I was exposed to all of that through the art scene, through cultural celebrations. And in one of these cultural celebrations, I came across this woman who was, tall, dark, and she commanded the room, and she had a lot of respect was given to her. So she was obviously quite important. But she was layered in jewelry and loads of fabric, and some of it sometimes would seem mishmashed, but it was all this cultural clash of just all these garments and jewelry. And I think that visual stayed with me and inspired, what I see right now as the Adorned series. So it is that visual aesthetic that you can see through the work right now. So yeah, that's kind of where the Adorned series started from.
Yeah, she's a really powerful woman. You could tell in the images, and it's you that also highlights that and brings that to life through the portraits. I heard you mention Nigeria, and that's definitely the place that I think has been the loudest to me in the NFT art space. Well, from the region of Africa is like very very big, but I just noticed there's just such an outpouring of Nigerian artists like displaying their work and being involved in Web3 right now. Do
Mhm.
you have any idea as to why that region specifically is just so involved?
Yeah, so that's a very great question. I think from what I know, and I go to Nigeria. I mean, I was there in September this year doing some work for a museum. But one of the things I find with Nigeria, everybody's quite tech savvy. Their mobile phones everywhere, and this wasn't just now. This was like we're looking 10 years back. So everybody's on their phone, even if they're not even speaking English and they're speaking, the different native tongues, and we have quite a few. And I mean, Nigeria is one of the most diverse places within Africa, and Africa itself is quite diverse. Um, so with everybody's quite tech savvy, they have phones, so it just lends itself to that people are going to know about NFTs, and the various artists, and the young contemporary artists are already beginning to flow in that space. And some of them are not creating art, but they're buying crypto, or they're creating different tools within this space. to within the crypto space. So it just makes sense, and I'm not surprised. I think Africa, as it is that emerging space. So in a few years, and well, there is a conversation right now that the future is Africa, and I can very much see that. Its lands are untapped, and that's why you find a lot of Western cultures, or even from the Far East, like China, are all there's kind of a land rush and a gold rush to get into Africa, because it's this space which is untapped right now. So I'm not surprised that there's quite a growing, I guess, a growing need for NFTs and a growing space for NFTs in Africa, and the art scene in Nigeria has completely exploded over the past 7 years. You have some amazing artists coming out of Africa who are world renowned. So I can see that as well. So the intersection between art and technology obviously is the NFT space. One of those is the NFT space. So it's beautiful to see.
It really, really is, to see the influence and also the attention given. And this is such a beautiful representation. And you also mentioned, and even looking through the Twitter feed, that this is a collection that has been viewed a lot in the physical world. Is that right?
Yeah. So it was my one of my first bodies of work, and it went into a gallery, I think 2016, 2017. And it sold out as physical copies. I had a show in Nigeria and I had a show in London. Um, it was before the NFT space, so it might have been quite a different story back then if NFTs existed. But yeah, it's a wonderful series, quite dear to my heart.
And it is absolutely beautiful, and it's amazing. The list on the website of locations that it's been exhibited is so impressive. So congratulations to you on that. It's always
Thank you.
interesting to be learning about how the physical and the digital are now combining and joining, and so very cool to see that combination there. I did want to delve in maybe a little bit more about the images themselves,
Sure.
because the obviously the strong feminine presence is very, very present, but I also love the jewelry and all of the details included. And so could you tell us a bit more about your influence in that particular instance, or some of the meaning behind that?
Of course. So what I've found growing up, especially when I lived in Nigeria, is how much jewelry and aesthetic has symbolic meaning. So uh, it's very easy now to just wear jewelry, and it's jewelry. It's beautiful, and it creates a certain aesthetic. But I found with African art and culture, there's jewelry worn, but it's worn for a certain reason. So let's take one of the images called Edo. In that image, which is actually on the Bridge Gallery's page, with that image, it's that now that jewelry is cowrie, so it's coral beads. So these coral beads are usually worn by women who are about to get married. So it's usually worn, and it's from a certain part of Nigeria. But I found other cultures within Nigeria will wear those beads. So they have a beautiful sort of pink color to them, dark pinks moving towards red. And these coral beads are quite precious, but they're usually worn by women who are, getting married. And so jewelry in some ways, it's not just aesthetic, but it's also got symbolic meaning. So in some cases, for people who are certain royals, they wear certain bits of jewelry. And for some cases, when people are going through mourning, there's certain bit of jewelry worn with that. So with all these different cultures within Nigeria, jewelry has meaning. Or for a woman who's I guess becoming in the prime of her life, and she's in some ways getting ready to be married, or saying, or it's in some ways the jewelry is saying, okay, I'm fertile, I'm getting ready to, I guess, be connected to somebody else and start a relationship and marriage. There's jewelry to that. So all these different forms of jewelry I started to employ within the images. I took inspiration from different parts of Nigeria to be able to create the images. I worked with a stylist, kind of designed what I wanted to create, and worked with her in creating those, or in some cases, sourcing them from various cultural spaces. And then, these were layered. Some of these are layered with fabric, with clothes, and some, I also wanted to show the skin, so you can see through the images that there is a lot of black skin on display. And the women aren't this dark, but for me it was a metaphor to highlight the beauty of blackness and highlight that darkness and the richness. So in some ways it's physically an aesthetic choice, but also it's metaphorical. It's our blackness and how beautiful it is and how it shines. So that's also one of the things I wanted to put forward in the images.
I love that the jewelry transcends just the aesthetic, and it has a meaning to it. It lends a whole new dimension to the work. But I mean, as a bonus, the aesthetic is really quite beautiful, as the jewelry is really, really elaborate. And so I love the way you presented these against this sort of cream or beige colored background, and it has a high contrast on the skin tones, which makes it the blacks even stand out even more. Um, I haven't seen many portraits done like this, and they sort of transcend traditional portrait photography, and they feel very painterly. And you can see that there's just so many different areas on the skin where there's a battle between light and dark, and it's really, really, really beautiful. So I'd love to ask about your I saw the behind the scenes video. Do you use a lot of lights, or you use mostly one or two lights? Is it very simple process with the lighting and more about the model's pose? And how much do you have to do with the end result? You have a team also that helps you out, and it's a few questions.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good question. So with going technical, um, it's interesting considering the images of there's a darkness and richness to them. I think I go through about 3 to 5 lights, usually at least 4 lights, because I'm lighting my subjects, and then the skin is, on the day, the skin is, we've added a bit of darkness to it, but a bit of, how can I describe this? It's a sort of makeup aesthetic that we add to the skin, which combines oils and a few different makeup things made up by the makeup artist. So it's about having all these lights on different areas. There's one big light, and then there are a few other different lights to kind of make sure that there is a bounce off the skin to make it have this shine and have this high contrast to it. And then when that's all done and the images are put together, I further darken the skin tones, using editing software, Photoshop, and that. And then also, they're converted to black and white because I kind of wanted to keep the focus on the subject and keep, remove color from it so we can start to really see the richness of the skin and the poses of the subjects. I usually worked with, in some cases, I'm working with, I think 1 or 2 of the images are with dancers, but in some cases it's not dancers, they're actresses or people, or models, and they're all from African heritage and African descent, more so Nigerian, from where I am in Nigeria. It's because I wanted to kind of also make sure that these were Nigerian women, as the woman who I saw, in my that I have a memory of is Nigerian. I kind of wanted to tie it back. And so with them, I direct them. And I let them know what the images are about. So it's about strength. It's about power. It's about royalty. It's also about vulnerability. And it's about, there's a quietness to these images as well. So I relay all my ideas to them and I direct them on the day, but I also allow them space to interpret what it is being an African woman, through strength, through vulnerability, through power as well. So it's a collaborative process on the day. And for me, it's also about having fun. So we usually always have fun on the studio. There's music playing, so it allows people to just move and have a fluidity to it, but also sometimes be introspective and have a quietness to the images. So in some of the images, you can see that there's a quietness to them, but then some of them are quite vibrant, and there's a lot of dance involved with the images.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, so it's like a combination of the fact that you have this, you have this conceptual idea that you already
Mm-hmm.
have, and you're methodical about that. But then when you're sort of in the moment and on stage with and performing, there's this freedom that you give yourself, that you give this subject, so that you guys know the concept going in, but now
Mm-hmm.
you're letting it play in the present, in real time, in motion. And I think that that's probably something that lends to um, the feeling of how genuine these actually come across.
Oh, thank you, thank you. That's very true. I think I found just creating photographs over the years that you can have all the plans in the world, but uh, things sometimes don't go according to plan. So allowing yourself that fluidity and course correction or shift and change during the day creates beautiful, happy accidents or beautiful, unexpected things. And, this is one of those projects. I saw the vision in my head, but creating things on the day, how dark the skin's going to be, how beautiful the images would come out. As much as I had a vision in my head, the visualization and when it came to fruition were slight deviations from that. They were better, but allowing myself to go with the flow on the day, but still have an idea of where I wanted to go. Those are beautiful things in what I do as an artist.
Well, that's a huge lesson, I think, for all of us in life, that, and not just art, that while we think we have control, at the
Mm,
same time, there's a certain level where we don't have control at the same time. So to kind of give us have as much control as we can, with the idea of knowing that that we're not sure about what's going to happen, until kind of like let
mm,
that play out in itself. And um, it's a lot of artists that are probably perfectionists, which probably hinders their ability in some way, and knowing that wisdom that you just spoke of, about um, happy accidents, and letting the universe unravel and play in its own script as well. So having
mm,
some level of control, but letting everything come together on its own.
mm-hmm. This is, yeah, very true, very true.
Well, and I love seeing the use of motion so much throughout the series. It's really, really the behind the scenes video really brought that to life. But at the same time, it just ends up having such a natural and authentic feel to all of the images included in this particular series. And was there something that is there a meaning behind the emotion that is included in the portraits?
Yeah, so the movement was about liberation. So I love Nigeria, and it's where I'm from, but there are certain challenges with how womanhood is viewed. So women have a lower space on the future, and I do even see this in Western culture. It's not so much. It's not always just a Nigerian thing. How the space of women, anything from pay gaps to I guess how men in some ways have a certain power over women, and you see this in various cultures. And as cultures evolve, these things we start to be aware, and we start to see these challenges of patriarchal structures and spaces. And Nigeria is a patriarchal culture. And as a kid, I didn't really see this. My mother was quite a strong character and strong woman figure in our home and in the communities around us. But what I found is, when I would go back to Nigeria, that women are can sometimes be spoken down to, and there's some issues that I have with how women are. They're in some ways they're held down. They're patriarchal structures that kind of put them down. So for me, these images were a celebration of womanhood and that sort of liberation of the female form and the ideologies. So when we see movement and dance, I'm directing the models to allow themselves to be free, allow themselves to just move and dance with music, or even in the absence of music. And in some ways I will speak to them, saying, please, forget I'm here, and let's make these photographs of a space or a time in your head. And in some ways we're bringing that to life, and it's things that I've seen in my head as well about liberation and power. And so that's kind of where the movements, the inspiration for the movements, in some cases it's quiet and it's more contemplative, and in some places it's powerful and strength, and in some places it's about flow. And so you can even see fabrics in some ways kind of creating that flow, you know I guess elevate what I can't find the word, but the fabric flows, and you can kind of see the woman's figure as well flows with that fabric, and it creates these beautiful silhouettes.
It's just so striking to see the model and really the model and yourself kind of collaborating on being able to capture these moments, and that you're allowing that freedom to be introduced into the creation process. And it is absolutely beautiful. And I think that also is a testament to wanting to capture and really be able to highlight and resonate the essence of the women here, to not be dictating, to let them have the freedom to move and to express themselves and be able to capture that expression. So it's an absolutely beautiful series, and really, really love learning more about the details behind everything that goes into it. When you see these images, you can feel that there's more behind the images than just the image itself, that there's more there. So really, really interesting getting the chance to hear more from you about them. And I do want to also let folks know that if there's anyone in the audience, we will have time to come up and ask a few questions. So if anyone has questions that they'd like to ask, you can go ahead and request, and we can bring you up as we have time to. But I also wanted to ask about this series dropping tomorrow. Is going to be the drop date. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Very good. And there's going to be 15 images in the drop. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. There are 15 images, and among the 15 images, we have 14 still portraits and one motion portrait. Because as we were discussing before, Àsìkò is also a visual artist, in that he uses photography, mixed media, and film to build and tell his narratives. And for us, we have been amazed to see like the way he brings movement into his artworks, and it really gives depth and verticality to the entire collection to bring one motion portrait as part of the 15 artworks collection. And so that's why we wanted to have both formats of portraits, if I may say, in the collection.
Very good. That is so interesting. And now, is this going to be a blind mint, or will the images be available to select?
No, it won't be a blind mint. People will be able to choose between the 15 pieces.
Very good. And what platform will it be available on?
It will be on Foundation from 6 p.m. CET. So I know we have a lot of struggle with the different time zones. Like on the space, the three of us are in 3 different time zones, but it will be at 6 p.m. CET on Foundation.
Very good. Very good. And has a price been decided?
So the price is split between the motion portraits and the 14 artworks that are still. So the motion portrait will be listed at 1.5, and the 14 still portraits will be listed at 0.65.
Very good, very good. And I'm sure that those details and links will be available on the Bridge Twitter page. The Bridge Gallery Twitter, and that information will be easily available there.
Yeah, of course. We'll post really soon about all the details for people regarding the drop prices and drop timing.
Very good, very good. Well, excited for the drop tomorrow for sure. And I know we've had several speakers come up and join us. Basil is our first to come up and request. So I'll go ahead and say hello to Basil and see if you have anything you would like to contribute.
Hi, Emma. I've really enjoyed the show. The presentation of the work was very well done. I think the questions were great, and I love the work. It's beautiful, well controlled, very emotive. The question that I had, if I could, was about the treatment. I would love to know if I missed that at the beginning. I'm really sorry. But I would love to know why that particular treatment for these photographs was chosen. I see that you're shooting with a digital camera, but they feel they feel like wet collodion plates the way that they're treated. They have like a very kind of traditional, almost antique feel with the color, and was wondering if that was chosen and how you decided on that.
Okay. Hello. Hi. Thank you. Thanks for that great question. So I found my process to be experimental. And when I say experimental, it's more, I have a vision in my head. I knew I was going to have high contrast black and white images. Now, how dark, that was more in experimenting and thinking, I want to show blackness. But blackness is not really, well, at least when I created these images, it was not that you could see this level of darkness, and it's all over the media. That's not usually the case from my point of view. So my process involved, okay, how dark can we make this? But then we still see features, we still have a lot of beautiful contrast. So that affected how I, went through my retouching process. But then in terms of I assume you were possibly talking about the tone for the images. So there is a yellowish sort of, because as much as I made them black and whites, I still wanted to add a bit of color. But what inspired the bit of color was actually gold. So there's a level, without going, I felt this was a happy place in terms of instead of having them completely monochrome black and white, was to have this goldish tone to it. But I didn't want to have, gold all over the image because I didn't feel that was going to work. So it's more taking inspirations from the color of gold and so it becomes this kind of creamish yellow a piece all over the whole image. And I felt that was kind of the happy place that I came to while experimenting with using aspects of, that gold color. And when they're printed, I use a Kodak metallic gold paper, and that creates that aspect of gold, so that shine, and then with the yellowness, it kind of has a gold feel to it. So those were the sorts of I guess ideas and feelings and experimentation that I kind of work through. It's a bit organic and just trying this out and trying that out and seeing which one works based on how I feel about them.
I just wanted to jump in real quick, MVP, and just say that's a brilliant execution choice to pick that paper that sort of has that gold feel to it, because I didn't know that the figures themselves were actually black and white, because it feels like the shine that's on the figures is actually that sort of goldish beige color.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no idea, and it's probably the paper choice that you used that lends to that. So it's like the combination of what you're doing between your beginning concept, the freedom that you give the subject that you choose, the lighting choices, the paper choices. It's very complex and very beautiful. Now you hear a lot of people and they say, well, a beautiful photograph shouldn't have to have any type of description or anything like that, and I agree to some sense in that. But then hearing you talk about the process and then all of this, like it adds a even further dimension to the work for me to understand like what all went into this, and it's truly brilliant what you've created here.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. I appreciate that.
I completely agree. And Basil, did you have anything else that you wanted? That was a great question, and was a wonderful response as well.
I just wanted to say thank you for that. I appreciate the response, and just to say how impressive not just the treatment is, but how consistent that consistency across all of the images, I think, really feels very professional, very cohesive. The whole thing, the whole project really holds together like one piece, and I really appreciate that. So love it, love it, love it, love it.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Completely agree. And that is the curation is something that definitely stands out. And I was curious, is there more than 15 pieces within the full collection?
Yes, there are. This was edited down. I think these were shot over possibly. I would say, yeah, I'm looking, yeah, about 2 years. So they've been curated from these various personal projects to this 15. I think in the collection there might be about 20, 25 within this series, but I've been creating work for the Adorned series for years, and I have, at the moment I'm in a different phase of the Adorned series right now, where I'm doing different things. But this was the genesis of the whole project. So it's kind of strangely ongoing, and it's more delving into different areas of womanhood or culture or of all these different areas. So but yeah, this series, I think we're looking at about 20 something of them.
And was it hard to curate the ones that are selected?
I find it always hard. And sometimes I need other people to look at it because sometimes I can be tunnel visioned, or because I'm very close to the work. So I will always ask one or two people for ideas of curating, and sometimes it's good to step out of yourself. And I have one or two friends who are curators in galleries, so I can always reach out to them and ask for their advice.
I think that that is something that most people would relate to you with. And it's wonderful that you have people that you can turn to, that are trusted friends, to be able to help with that process. I'm sure it would be extremely difficult to select from the beautiful pieces available. So, but the curation is outstanding. I mean, it's just,
thank you.
It's just amazing. And I would like to go ahead and see, I think our next speaker that came up on stage was Apa, I believe, Benson. I'm not sure if I said your first name correctly, but hello, how are you today?
Hello, how are you? I think it was actually Alex. I think Alex came up before me. If he's there, I can go ahead and then I'll go next.
Thank you very much, and I apologize for that. Alex, hi and welcome.
No, I think it's you, Ava. It's fine.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so glad to be excited. Thank you for the opportunity to sort of be in his space with Àsìkò. So he may not be aware, but like I've been a fan of his work for a long time. Because I'm a huge you just have to take a peek. I'm a huge fan of using shadows and dark contrasty tunes. So when I remember going on Instagram, and when I discovered his work, I was like, okay, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And it's so great that the Bridge Gallery is doing right now, bringing some of the best of African talent, and bringing them to the NFT space. I want to sort of commend them for that. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here. So I think I have two questions really. I think yeah, part of the first question has already been answered, because I'm really interested in your process. I don't know how I don't know how much you can talk more about it, but my question about that would be, how much of it is sort of like, I know you also do mixed media. How much of it is strictly just a photograph, just taking the photo and sort of working on it, or how many times or how often do you sort of add other elements that were not like in the shoot, or in that were not like present at the time you took the photo? How often do you decide to do this? That is my first question.
Thank you, Apa, and thank you for that interesting question. Would I that's an interesting question. Okay, so for this Adorned series, nothing was brought in. Everything is as it was shot in camera. That I at this time I hadn't started incorporating elements into the image. There is another series called She's Adorned, where I started bringing in new elements, and some of these were mixed media elements. But that was because of what I was trying to say about how cultural heritage is layered and it's complex, and it has beauty to it, but then it also has an element of danger to it. So that series was about was me adding elements was because of the ideas that I wanted. Now, coming back to the Adorned series, this was more about this powerful woman and this how culture adorns her, and she is she is beautiful in herself, but she's also beautiful because of the culture that she comes from. And so the images are this intersection between womanhood and culture, and how I represent the culture in the images is through jewelry, which is, has cultural meaning, or, in some of the images, you have like a priestess type woman, a woman and in my African culture, women are very powerful in terms of their spirituality, more so than the men. So at least from my point of view, so the the women are adorned in these beautiful jewelry with meaning to it. So I would say, for process wise, everything was shot in camera, and everything that you see was made on the day. um, Now the aesthetic that comes out of it, in terms of darkness and in terms of the color treatment, that's more added in things like editing softwares like Photoshop, which is, in a strange way, it's a different form of paintbrush for the contemporary African artist. People like Malik Sibide, who are inspirations for us as artists. They didn't have things like Photoshop; they used the darkroom. But for more as a contemporary student of now, I work with different tools.
Um, that really gives like a very insightful um perspective to how things work, and I appreciate that. And I think my next question is, so I've been working with models, and I'm a huge fan of um using a lot of jewelry to sort of adorn people and create these photographs that have that contrast and have that um appreciation for these accessories that we have, yeah, especially here in Africa, that are colorful and all that. My question is, when you traveled, and this question is probably from having a conversation with a friend that recently, traveled to the UK. He's been working with, most of his work he's been doing has been focused on talking about like the African culture, and he's been doing that with like the accessories, the clothes. You get the idea. So
Mm-hmm.
like when you moved, do you think, for example, if you be staying there, that there will be sort of like a disconnect between how you would want to represent the culture here with every access that you have? Do you think there will be sort of like a little bit of displacement with how you have what the access you have, and like the
Mm.
environment itself? Do you think that there will be difficulty in creating the same high value work that sort of is still rooted in like the culture and like the values and everything?
So I'll repeat your question so that I hope I got it right in the end.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
so it's Do I think that if I was back home in Nigeria, as opposed to here,
Yeah,
that I could always still create the work wherever I am. So I live in
yeah,
London, and then there's Nigeria. So creating the work, it should still have high value regardless of wherever it is. I
yeah.
believe. Okay. So I think wherever I am, I don't think it matters as much. I think it's more, what is my thought process and what do I want to talk about? So living in the UK is a beautiful thing, especially London, because I'm exposed to a lot of very different creative people. And I found, living in London, as opposed to when I lived in Nigeria, I've met people from different African countries that I possibly never did come across when I was living in Nigeria. I've met people from Angola, from Mozambique, from Kenya. And because London's this big melting pot of different ethnicities and cultures. So that's been quite good for my creative process. Now, I'm not saying if I was living in Nigeria that I wouldn't experience this. I possibly would experience it very differently. I go back to Nigeria to create work, and I was there in September, and the talent level of the stylists and the models that I worked with was just beautiful. It's very different from the UK. There's none better than the other. It's just a very, very different vibe. And it's one of the reasons I love going back to Nigeria to create work, because it adds a different perspective with the collaborations, because they see the world very differently. So, and if I went to the US and made work, it would be quite different, but it would still very much still be the same, because I'm still at the center of it, and my heart and my soul, and how I create work and see the world is still very much at the center of the work, but it would possibly have slightly different paradigms to it. So I think, yeah, it's, and I enjoy going to create everywhere. I mean, I was in Benin Republic, and I have, a body of work when I was in Benin Republic. And that's one of the things I enjoy, travel, because creating in all these different places adds a whole different thing to what you do. And I think, as artists, or even as people, there's a certain level of travel we enjoy, just being in a different place, speaking to different people, seeing different cultural representations of things just really inspires the work. So it's for me, it's one of the most beautiful things to travel. That's why the pandemic really sucked, and I'm sure it sucked for everybody. Apart from just the normal stuff, it was also our ability to get on a plane and just go somewhere which is different from where we are from or where we exist. It just feeds the soul.
Um, thank you very much for taking the time. I think those are the questions that I have, and I really, I'll definitely keep checking out your stuff, because I'm always inspired by the kind of work that you create. So yeah, huge thanks to MetaJungle and everyone that has made this possible.
Thanks a lot, Apa. And I guess you're based in Nigeria, or are you?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Big ups to my Nigerian peeps. Love you guys.
Great questions for sure. And we have one more speaker that came up to ask a question. And I was really, when you mentioned Alex Apo, I know his name isn't Alex, but maybe I've got it wrong. But we'll go ahead and go over to Chris Aduma and say hello.
Hi, MetaJungle. Hi, Spatial. Um, Basil, shout out to you, man, and Bridge Gallery. Big ups to you guys for curating African art and bringing Àsìkò onto this space. This would be my first time actually interacting with Àsìkò. I mean, I think I followed you from Àsìkò Lagos, since 2016, pretty much 2015, 2016. I think that's pretty much the time I got introduced to your work, and you were certainly one of the earliest people that I came across when I started my own journey. And it's beautiful that I'm here now, and first off for after 7 years, I guess, so after 6 years, which is beautiful. So thanks, Alex. Thanks, Bridge Gallery, for making this possible. And I think I was going to ask this question. I was going to ask this question in this way because of Appa, which is one of these questions because of Appa. It's like, what is your relationship with shadow? But I think he already gets that. So I would ask how, what were the things that really helped you escape the type of examples that you had? Which, for instance, if you speak about African photography, the biggest example for us would be, Malik Sibide, Side Mteta, of course, Paul J.K., who I know that you, of course, have a type of relationship with his family, his son and other people there because of with CCA and BC Silver, blessed memory. But what were the things that helped you really escape just doing the same thing? Because I know that even more recently, I see your work and I see some similarities with that aesthetics and just how much that is. But then the way you started, it felt like it was very definite, but I know that there's a process to that. So maybe you want to speak a bit about that. What helped you escape, just doing the same thing that you saw in the history, or maybe you didn't necessarily see it?
So this is a very, very layered question. And thank you for the question. Um, So I think what I found is we have to be on the journey. So whether it's a journey in creation or a journey of life, we have to discover, rediscover, evolve, grow, but be always present and mindful of the journey. So my photography journey in some ways is a parallel to my life journey, and they're one and the same in some instances. So we we I believe I took on all the things that my ancestors or the people that went before me. I saw the work that they created. You know, Malik Zebide, God, why the brains? Sorry, people have escaped my, Yinka, Shonibari, and all the great artists. And what happens is, and I believe this is what we are meant to do. We're supposed to take it and blend it together, and blend it together with our own sensibilities as creators, as artists, and then create something new from it. And that's how we move things forward. That's how African art evolves. And you can see it with the artists out there, whether they're photographers, painters, filmmakers. It is evolving and it is growing. And, my practice is evolving and growing. The Adorned series was, one of the first bodies of work. And it stands alone as its own thing, but I'm creating different, it's led me to where I am right now, and I'm creating slightly different things. Some things still call back to the Adorned series, and some things are in completely different directions. The idea is for us to internalize the things that we've seen, be inspired by the various beautiful things we've seen. As a child, I was inspired, and I'm still to this day inspired by the Renaissance movement in European art. And if you look closely, you can see the inspirations from there. And that's also mixed in with my African sensibilities and with the African sculptures. Some of this work, the Adorned series, is also from sculptural work, the beautiful sculptures coming from Nigeria and from Africa. So all of that mixed in and blended in together kind of feeds what I create and what I do. But I think the important thing is to be, I guess, in some ways, true to myself and true to my, what's the word? My instincts as an artist. But I don't create these things just by myself. As they say, there's nothing new under the sun. But I'm taking all these different things and then, blending them together and making this new work. But this new work is, from all the other things that I've seen. So I think as artists, it's like, what have you seen as a child? What are your traumas, or what are your happy places? What are the things you want to talk about? What are the things that make you mad? What are things that make you happy? And those are the things that we look to create from, because those things become distinctive of us and our journey. So those are the beautiful things that we create from. So I I won't say I escaped what I saw, but I interpreted it differently, or took it and kind of, you know, ran with it. But in running with it, it's never going to be as I took it. It's going to be this new form of something that I created from what I do. I hope that answered your question a bit.
Yeah, very well, man. That was very detailed. And yeah, shout out to you, man. You remain the biggest reference for, this aesthetics as far as Nigeria is concerned. So yeah, big ups to you and wishing you all the best, man, with this drop.
Oh,
Shout out
thanks
to
so much,
Bridge
bro.
Gallery again. Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Excellent question and excellent answer. Very, very, very nice. This has been such a wonderful opportunity to get to know you better as a photographer, but also to get to know about this series. So really, really appreciate the opportunity and the time. I know we had had scheduled about an hour, and we're getting just over that. So I wanted to also ask: is there anything that you would like to share about the series or the drop that we haven't highlighted yet?
It's a very good question. No, I would just say it's born out of love, and it's born out of the place where I'm from, and I think we all want to do the things that we love, and we all want to express from that place of love. So yeah, just grateful to share this with everybody, and thanks from the guys at the Bridge Gallery. Thanks, we had loads of great conversations leading up to this, and I didn't really know that much about the NFT space about a year ago, but through the various conversations that we've had, I've been really inspired, and I wanted to show this work in a different way than I'd usually it's always been in a gallery space, but to be able to show it within the NFTs has been an interesting and beautiful journey, and it's also made me think about how to make my images move, and that's where the animated piece has come from, and that I'm looking to do more of over in the coming months and in the coming years, to create images that move from the initial images that I created for, and so yeah, thanks to the guys at the Bridge Gallery. I appreciate you guys, and you guys have been super patient with me, but yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Àsìkò. Thank you, Àsìkò. And yeah, if I may jump in, when we created the Bridge Gallery, we really wanted to try to find ways to push the photography medium into new ways, to explore new ways to have the work of people from all the Africa and all the diaspora be collected, be exposed, be exhibited, be discussed, be admired from all around the world, and being able to witness the conversation that Appa and Chris had with you is like, I'm really proud to be able to see that the kind of conversations that Web3 can enable just happen. And so I'm really proud to participate in like trying to cast a new light on artists from the whole diaspora, to celebrate the work from artists in front of new collectors, new people, and to enable conversations. Because I guess it's all NFTs and Web3 are all about, like enabling insightful conversations between people, between artists and collectors, or merely between artists and art lovers. So thanks, Àsìkò.
Yes, and if I may add, we are, and I'm personally so proud to work with you, Àsìkò. It's been a pleasure working on this collection, talking about your story, knowing more about every day about your work, what you wanted to tell in this collection, in your art in general. It's absolutely amazing. I've learned a lot actually about Yoruba culture. So it's this is what it's all about also. And yeah, no, I'm just very excited for the drop tomorrow, and excited for what's coming next, maybe for future projects also. So no, it's just a pleasure being on this adventure with you, Àsìkò, and thank you, MetaJungle, for giving us the opportunity to talk about this, about the collection, about the Adorned series, in front of all these people. It's a great opportunity. So thank you, and thank you, Àsìkò.
Yeah, big shout outs to MetaJungle. Thank you so much for the platform. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I feel very fortunate to be in your presence, Àsìkò. Your work is brilliant, but outside of that, you answer these questions with such honesty and poise, and outside of just being a great artist, I think you're truly a great influence and voice for not just the Nigerian community, but the African community and all of the art communities in general. So. I'm looking forward to see your drop. I'm looking forward to see the future of your artwork even evolve, and just the future of what you do to create and evolve the NFT art space. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very well said, Mike, and I couldn't agree more. And it's been an honor to have the opportunity to be able to highlight this series, and like I mentioned before, just to get to know you more, Àsìkò, and get to learn more about what you're creating. And can't wait to see the creative license that NFTs can provide for future projects as well. So I'd like to encourage everyone that's listening to thank you for coming, but also encourage you to follow Àsìkò, to follow the Bridge Gallery, Alex, so you can keep up on what's coming in the future, make those connections. We'll be watching for the drop happening tomorrow at 6 p.m. And that on London time, so we can adjust accordingly. And I did have a question related to the drop tomorrow. Is there a pre-sale available at all?
There is a sort of a whitelist that we wanted to allow for our collectors. So yes, there is a pre-sale, but which will happen tomorrow.
And if anyone's interested in that, should they reach out to the Bridge Gallery account, or is there a process that they could go through?
Yes, of course. If someone is interested in entering the whitelist, they can of course reach out to the Bridge Gallery account. Yes, I think that would be easier. But feel free to reach out, and we will of course add you also to the whitelist.
Very good, very good. Well, we are very excited and wish you all the success with this particular collection and also for future endeavors. So I want to thank you guys for your time today and for the opportunity to be able to share more about this.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. Thanks.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. And so, again, everyone, please follow the accounts, be watching for tomorrow, and we will be very excited to see how things unfold and to also appreciate this beautiful work. The images are available for view now by visiting the Bridge Gallery website, which is thebridgegallery.xyz. So can check that out. But want to say thank you to everyone that's joined us today. Excellent questions and really, really great, insightful answers. So Àsìkò, you do a wonderful job representing, and really have enjoyed this time together. So thank you again, everyone. And with that, I think that we will go ahead and wrap up for our space today. But thank you, everyone, for coming and attending and showing the support. And we'll continue to do so. So thank you all, and have a wonderful day, wonderful evening, and we will